Right, so we're going to take a look at this study, which was done by an organisation called the Clean Label Project. These guys are a non-profit organisation based in the USA, and their role is to examine nutrition labels and ingredients in supplements and dietary products for consumer safety. It's really interesting that they are a non-profit because technically they don't have a horse in the race, so it makes this even more credible. And this was a study they did in 2018 on 134 of the top-selling protein powder products in the USA, according to Nielsen and Amazon.com bestseller list. Now, full disclosure, we were not in this study. We were not in the top sellers at this time. We had actually only really just launched in America. But it was this study that really made me aware of the issues that came with heavy metals and really made me super strict. We now have someone in-house who's dealing with this completely as their a big part of that role. And they found that 70% of the protein powders tested had high levels of lead, or detectable levels of lead, should I say, 74% detectable levels of cadmium, and 55% detectable levels of BPA. BPA isn't a heavy metal, it's a endocrine disrupting toxin that's most commonly found in plastic. It can also leach into the soil too. And they've got this really cool infographic which explains what exactly is going on. What's really interesting is that they found that organic protein powders was scoring worse than non-organic, and that plant-based was scoring worse than non-plant-based. Now, there's a number of reasons that this could be the case. The first is that obviously plants do absorb more heavy metals, toxins, and nutrients from the soil than animal products do, for instance. And also, I think it really shows the state of the plant-based protein powder market, because most plant-based protein powders are being made in China, mass industrial farms, and obviously the soil quality is really not good. So I think that's a big contributor to it. But it is interesting to see nonetheless, and we'll get to that a little bit more in more detail. They found that egg protein was a cleaner protein source than plant-based. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, because it really depends on the plant-based proteins that you are looking at. Obviously, eggs, there's a lot less direct impact with the soil, right? If you're consuming a pea protein, obviously they're sucking the nutrients straight out of the soil. Egg protein isn't doing it quite that way. There's a middleman or a middle chicken in the middle. So if we actually look at the protein powders that scored the best and the worst, so this is on the Clean Label Project, they've ranked all the protein powders that they tested. What's really interesting is that the best protein powders are exclusively animal based. There's whey protein, it's mostly whey protein, a bone broth protein, which is very interesting. A lot of these brands, if you look, they're not, if you look at them, they don't strike you as health brands. So it makes me think that either they are testing and they have really good quality control, which is excellent, or it's just a case of that whey obviously just does not absorb the heavy metals that plant-based does. So we're going to go to the worst offenders now, because this is really eye-opening and it really shocked me. If you look at the brands that are scoring the worst, you'll see that it's a lot of the biggest brands in the plant-based world. Most notably Vega. Vega are the biggest plant-based protein brand. They were bought out a couple of years ago for a lot of money, and when that happened, I did notice that they really changed the ingredients that they were using in their products. You notice just little things like switching hemp protein in their protein blends to a rice protein. Rice protein is a hell of a lot cheaper, but it's also one of the most susceptible to heavy metals, and I think this is now showing in these test results. Sun Warrior appearing there too. So these are a lot of the big brands that are buying these ingredients en masse. Garden of Life here now. So there's a common Optimum Nutrition quest. A common theme that I'm seeing is that the big brands are the ones who are appearing the worst offenders on this, and I don't think that's a coincidence, because they're buying ingredients in such huge quantities that they're going to have to be being made, if they're buying them from the same supplier, which I assume they are, they're going to be grown on huge industrial farms. And knowing the industry like I do, these farms will be in China, because they'll be offering the cheapest ingredients and the biggest quantities. And I think it's no coincidence that we're seeing high levels of things like arsenic, mercury, lead in their products. I'll link this study down below. It's very interesting to dive deeper into. And I'm just going to quickly show you how it is we're doing things differently. So obviously you can compare, because obviously this is a very serious issue and it's something that we take extremely seriously. So if you go on our the product page for our Perform protein powder, or any of our products for that matter, you will find a heavy metal tested tab. And what that shows is the steps that we go to ensure that our products are 100% heavy metal safe. Now, when I say 100% safe, I can't say that they're 100% heavy metal free, because everything does contain heavy metals to some degree. If you were to turn on your tap and drink some water, there would be trace amounts of heavy metals in it. Same if you were to pick a carrot out of the ground and eat it. Heavy metals do naturally occur in soil. What is important is that they're in there way below the safety limits. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. The first step we do is we work with suppliers who actually have, first of all, the high quality standards, that we know they're not operating with, industrial farming practices, heavy pesticide use, reliance on chemicals, things that can really damage the soil quality and obviously cause high levels of heavy metals to be in there. We also test at source, so we batch test the ingredients before they come in, and then we batch test the products again to make sure that they're heavy metal safe. So this is a report that we've done on our latest batch of protein powder. What we've done to make it easy, we've shown the EU safety limit per kilo. So this is not just for protein powders, this is for all foods. So if you were to eat a kilo of carrots, if you were to eat a kilo of rice, if you were to eat a kilo of protein powder, then these are the limits that you need to be aware of. What's obviously interesting is that the limit is per kilo. So if you're going to be eating a food, for example, a potato, you're going to eat a lot more potato than you would of a protein powder, or even something smaller like a B12, right? Your B12, you're going to take a very, very small amount, but the safety limit is always done per kilo, so it's always interesting. So this is our lab results compared to the EU safety limit. So arsenic, there's actually no current EU safety limit. We scored less than 0.1 milligrams per kilogram. Lead, the safety limit is 3 milligrams per kilogram. We scored less than 0.06. Mercury is 0.1. We scored less than 0.05. And cadmium, the safety limit is 1 milligram per kilogram. We scored less than 0.003. Now, the reason it's less than is because these are the safety limits. These are the test parameters that we did. We want to actually in the future have a look at more sensitive testing, but these are kind of the sensitivities that we're given for the tests that we've currently had done. But as you can see, they're all well within the safety limit, and it's important to note as well that these are safety limits per kilo. Now, we're not consuming a kilo of protein powder at a time, or at least I would hope you're not. So obviously these scores are even better than you think. So it's really interesting to obviously be involved in the game and see the steps that we have to go to ensure that our heavy metals, our products are heavy metal safe. Full disclosure, we've tested ingredients before they've come in and into our warehouse and before they've gone into manufacturers, and they've been over the heavy metal limits. And what we've had to do is go back to the supplier and say, look, why is this happening? How can we rectify it? And obviously, we can't sell this ingredient, we can't use it. So we've either had to look at different suppliers temporarily or move completely whilst that issue is being rectified. So it does really come with its additional steps. I understand why companies are skipping this step, because it is very expensive and it's very inconvenient, but it's also extremely important when it comes to our health. Heavy metals are no joke. They build up in our cells, in our brains, and can cause really serious long-term damage. So we take this very seriously, just as seriously as we do our testing for pesticides and herbicides. We tested for over 500 different ones in the latest batch of Perform, and none could be detected. So it's these tests that I think are extremely important, and one day I believe they will be made compulsory. But right now we do them as a choice because we believe that transparency is the most important thing, and product quality is the most important thing too. So I hope that helps. I will carry on with the article now, and yeah, catch you soon.